In this screencast, I'm going to present my thematic unit plan for our technology methods class. So my theme was my family, mi familia in Spanish. The reason I chose this theme was because it's very relevant to students. They do spend, half of the day in school, the other half they spend with their family. It also creates a real life situation for these students. It's much more applicable than learning about math or learning about science. Students have a very easy time seeing how they can use this vocabulary in real life. It is also high interest. I do find that students always want to talk about their family, their friends, their pets, what they do with their family over the weekend. So I do think that this is a high interest subject for these students. It's also personal because everyone's families are very different. People come from different backgrounds, maybe different countries. They speak different languages at home. They have different customs and traditions. So students always want to share and also compare and contrast with other students in their class. And I do think too that because they spend so much of their time with their family, it does also encourage spontaneous use of the target language because they've learned this vocabulary so they can see how they can apply it outside of the world language classroom. So my students are in 4th and 5th grade. Currently in my real situation, this is their first year of learning Spanish. So for right now, 4th and 5th grade are on the same exact level. We're both novice mid, working our way up to novice high. So at the novice mid proficiency level, what they're able to do is read and speak with isolated words as well as write isolated words. They have memorized phrases, so sometimes como estás, buenos días, those are memorized phrases. They don't always know the exact meaning of them, but they have them memorized. Some things they're able to do as well are state needs and preferences. They can make lists. They can very, very vaguely describe someone, maybe saying, she likes to play soccer. They can do really simple sentences like that. In my real teaching situation, the class size ranges from about 15 students, which is ideal, to 24 students. Dealing with larger classes is always kind of tricky, especially with the seating arrangements and depending on the nature of those students, if they have IEPs. So I do try to make my lessons differentiated and also with modifications on both sides to modify for students that are lower, as well as modifying for students that are maybe more advanced with the language or just in general. And these students have world language twice a week for 20 minutes each. So here is my unit web that I made for La Familia. So I made mine a little bit differently. I actually started with the 4 kind of main topics that we're talking about. That was easier for me to sort out in my head. So the first, probably most important one for La Familia is the family members. So in this topic, they're connecting to cultures because they're exploring the role of family members in different cultures. The functions they're learning are me llamo, my name is, and se llama. We should be kind of familiar with this from the past, but students will be working on introducing themselves as well as introducing family members. They also have the structure yo tengo, so working with the verbo tener, talking about what kind of family members they have, and they might also act as characters from a TV show to kind of prevent them talking about their family if maybe it's a touchy subject. The reason I have this green arrow pointing from members to pets as well as this line for pets, pets is kind of a separate entity, but some people also consider their pets their family, so they're definitely connected. So for comparison, students are comparing traditional pets in the US to traditional pets in other cultures. I have some students that are shocked when I tell them that we have pets, we have guinea pigs as pets, but in Peru, a very common delicacy dish is guinea pig. So they get a little, upset about that. But that just shows the different traditional pets in different cultures. So they're also working with the yo tengo here, so how many pets they have and which ones they have, and they will be doing a poll and a bar graph about these. And kind of the similar thing too, se llama, my pet's name is blank. Mi gato se llama Fluffy. That's why these two topics are very connected. Another topic that I chose to talk about is the activities that they do. So I didn't list the specific ones, but some of them might be I like to eat with my family, I like to play sports with my family, I like to cook. So that's where the sentence structure le gusta comes in. So students are familiar with me gusta, I like, but this would be an introduction to someone else likes. So students will be completing a human bingo activity based on the preferences of their peers. And this leads to connections because they're able to connect to learning about these activities in social studies. Some things like cooking with their family, they might learn about how to cook in other cultures in classes like social studies. Lastly, I incorporated the time and date. So in a real life, class, a performance assessment I might have the students do is planning a birthday party for a family member. And an important part of any kind of party or birthday is talking about the time and the date. So for now, we're just going to focus on the date, but later on the time will come in. So with the date, they are going to be completing an information gap partner activity so they can learn how to say the date, which will also lead to them having a pen pal and asking that pen pal in Spanish when is their birthday, and they will be able to respond with their birthday. So students will also be able to listen to other students from other cultures talk about their schedules and their birthdays. So basically the main goals for this thematic unit on the family is that students will be able to describe their families, including the members, the pets, how many sisters they have, what their names are. They will be able to say the date in Spanish, not only for their birthdays, but also for important events, like 4th of July is a pretty obvious one, maybe Valentine's Day. Students will also be able to state their preferences using me gusta, so maybe their preferences for what they like to do with their family, which also leads into students will be able to list, because novice mid can make lists, about what activities they do with their families. I broke this unit up into 5 lessons. I would think that I would probably spend a little bit more time on it, but for now, I wanted to focus on just those kind of 3.5, including pets, those 3 to 4 main topics that I had. So here are the 5 lessons that I developed for my thematic unit plan. This is the first lesson of 5 lessons for the thematic unit, ¿Cómo es tu familia? As I said before, these are novice mid students at grade level 4 to 5, so it is an elementary school level. In this lesson, students will be able to talk about their family members and their names by learning the structure se llama. Students will also be able to answer questions about their families, and they will know how to describe the different kinds of family members and will know how to describe a family in general. So for the opening activity, the students will be given a Chromebook or some other kind of laptop, personal device, as well as a link to the digital photo story. So together they're going to watch the digital photo story in groups. I did record it as a screencast and made it into a YouTube video. So it does have my voice over reading the photo story. I think that for my proficiency level of students, this is probably the most accessible way to show them the photo story. So here is a small snippet of the photo story.
¿Cómo es tu familia? Todas las familias son diferentes. ¿Cómo es tu familia? ¿Es pequeña o es grande? ¿Tiene mascotas? ¿Es tu familia atrevida o es tranquila?
That's a small snippet of the photo story. After this, students would be given a link to a Google Forms survey that has questions from the photo story, not a yes or no question in terms of is this correct or not, but rather taking a survey about what characteristics fit their family. So some of the questions here, mi familia es pequeña o grande. And it says up at the directions that the students may refer to the YouTube photo story, so ideally they would have one tab open with the photo story so they can refer back to the photos and see what the vocabulary means, and another tab open with the Google form so they're able to answer these questions. I'm not able to show in live time what these results would be because I don't have a class of students right now doing this unit. However, we would go over these results in real time in class as the students submit their results. So we would also be discussing, oh, whose family likes to cook, whose family does not like to cook. Maybe they go out to restaurants pretty often. So after we review the responses to the survey, I'm going to reinforce those family vocabulary words using the video Tío Español. So Tío Español, kind of a silly video, but he does have an entire channel. I find that especially for topics where it's hard to find videos that are age appropriate, I just did a unit on los deportes, the sports, And almost all of the videos were really geared towards 4 and 5-year-olds, whereas I have students who are 9, 10, 11 years old. So while this might not be the most educational video or the most authentic video, it is educational and the students definitely have a hoot while watching it. So here is a small snippet of Tío Español.
Mira, Lola, ellos son mis padres, mi padre y mi madre. Yo los llamo papá y mamá, que es el modo familiar y cariñoso. Hola, Lola. Encantados. Mucho gusto. Estos señores
So that is a small snippet of the Tío Español video. Like I said, students do tend to find those very funny, so they are engaged in those. So we have learned the me llamo and se llama, my name is, their name is, structure in the past, so students will apply that structure, se llama, with their family members. So they're going to turn and talk to the person sitting next to them and talk about their family. So an example could be, my brother's name is Jose. Mi hermano se llama Jose. So I would have this up here, mi blank se llama blank, as a sentence structure for these students to follow. So that's the first lesson, to introduce this family vocabulary. Students would also be taking notes for this first lesson on the La Familia note-taking sheet. So here are kind of guides. It has the words spelled out down here. Like I said, for the novice, mid, novice, low, sometimes level, it really does help to have a word bank. So students would be able to fill this in as kind of a guided note-taking sheet throughout throughout lesson number 1 of 5 in this unit. And they will refer back to it as the unit goes along. In the second lesson, students will continue to talk about their family by learning to talk about any kind of pets that their family might have. They will be able to answer questions about what kind of pets their classmates have. So for the opening, they will be introduced to the different kind of pets that are common in American households by using Google Slides. So this is really simple, just going through some of the pets. I'm trying to find some funny pictures to keep the students engaged. So we're only going to focus on 6 pets for now. After that, students will be using iPads or personal devices to scan a QR code, which is pictured down here, that leads to the poll about pets that is on the class blog. So basically it says, ¿Qué tipo de mascota tiene tu familia? What kind of pet does your family have? They are able to vote more than one time, so although the boxes here are not the square boxes that allow you to check off more than one, they can submit multiple answers if they have both dogs and cats. They can submit 2 times. So after that, we would be able to view the results. Right now, because I clicked on gatos y peces, those are the only pets that our class has for now, but we would be able to view those results in live time in class. And after that, what we would do is we would go to our bar graph and we would fill in, ignoring the directions on here, we would fill in the bar graph according to how many students in the class have those pets that are pictured on the bottom. After that, students would be reviewing the mascotas vocabulary on Kahoot using Chromebooks, other kinds of laptops, iPads, or personal devices. So the Kahoot here, very simple, just like before. So, ¿Cómo se llama esta mascota? And in the answers, perro, pájaro, vaca, gato. So it allows the students to practice the names of their pets. In the third lesson, students will learn how to say the time and date in Spanish and will be able to state their birthday and write to a pen pal to ask when their birthday is. The reason that I decided to incorporate the time and date in Spanish, for the thematic unit, I decided to make it based around planning a party for a family member. So an important aspect of that is being able to say the time and date of the birthday and the event that is occurring. So students will start off by working in groups to use a Spanish worksheet, and they're going to use the Spanish worksheet with their critical thinking skills and put these months in order. The reason that I'm kind of giving them no guidance for this is because the majority of them, with the exception of enero, are cognates, so students should be able to write those months in order fairly easily. After that, students would come up to the smartboard, and I have a smart notebook file here with numbers 1 through 12 and all of the months. And it's really simple. It really engages them because they're able to come up and touch the board and drag it. So it becomes a lot more interactive. So I'd have a student come up and say, oh, ¿de qué número es el mes de abril? Like, which number out of 12? So they would drag abril over to número 4. After that, students would be Introducing the date structure by showing a screencast video of a calendar. So this is a screencast that I made using I screenshotted the calendar on my Mac to make it a little bit more, exciting for the students. So here's a snippet of what that screencast is like.
Sobre cómo decir la fecha en español. La fecha en español. La fecha tiene tres partes. La primera parte es el número. 1, 8, 10, 12, etc. El número en este caso es el 27. La segunda parte es el mes. Tenemos enero, febrero, marzo, abril, mayo, junio, julio.
And the screencast keeps going. I did also provide the arrows to show the students what they're supposed to be looking at, which I find was very helpful. After that, students will be completing an information gap activity where they must ask each other the date of certain events that are on their calendars. So I've actually used this in class and I've downloaded it for free from Teachers Pay Teachers. I think it's a wonderful resource. Basically, the way it works is that one student will get the first calendar, or calendar A, and then the second student will get calendar B. So notice that between the first, we have La Fiesta de Jorge, El Partido de Fútbol. They have some events on them. And then calendar 2 has different events, El Examen de Español, La Visita al Museo. So the point of this activity is for students to ask, and down here it has kind of prompting them, to ask each other when certain events are, and they are supposed to fill it in on their calendar. After that, how we're going to review it, I screenshotted the Septiembre calendar so it looks exactly the same, but I whited out all of the events that are on there. And what we're going to do is I'm going to call up students from the opposite calendar. So if they had calendar A, they have to answer a question from calendar B. And they would come up to the board. I can't do it now, but you're able to come up to the board and write on the smartboard with the marker. It's really hard to do on the computer, so I will just show you that for now. But students are able to come up and write the answers on the board, so it makes it a lot more interactive. After that, students will be given a Chromebook or some other kind of laptop, and they will be communicating via the ePals program. And the point for this is that they're supposed to ask someone who speaks Spanish as their first language when their birthday is, and they're going to respond with their birthday in Spanish as well. So it allows them to practice the structure of the date in an authentic way while engaging in interpersonal communication. In the fourth lesson of this unit, students will be able to talk about the activities that they do with their families and will be able to ask their classmates about their families. This lesson will be opened by them learning the vocabulary for family activities by playing a human bingo game, and this will be accompanied by photos so students can understand the vocabulary. So here's what that human bingo looks like. So, me gusta jugar deportes con mi familia, and me gusta is a structure that these students will be familiar with. So they end the con mi familia as well. So really it's just the vocabulary in between me gusta and con mi familia. So we have some positives, me gusta jugar, and some negatives, no me gusta jugar. So the idea is that students are going to be walking around the classroom and asking each other if they like traveling with their families in the target language, and they would choose someone who likes it and write their name on the line. So this allows them to learn the vocabulary while also finding out more about the other students' families. After this, students will be answering those questions by visiting my Twitter. So they can either go to my Twitter, which is twitter.com/señoracosa, or they can search the hashtag Señora Cosa Español. They have the same tweets that appear. So what they're supposed to do is they're supposed to either like or retweet the tweets that pertain to them. So if they like to travel with their family, they would either like or retweet this tweet. If they like to eat with their family, same thing, they would like or retweet it. And if they don't have a Twitter account on there, we would have had class accounts for this, or their personal ones, and they're able to go on a just generic Spanish account and like or retweet these tweets to show how their family is with these kind of activities. After that, students would pick one of the activities that they like to do with their family, and they will create a blog entry about it. So because we've worked with blogs in the past with this class, they would have already had some kind of WordPress blog that goes along with the polls and the surveys that we do. And this is just the front page for WordPress, but what they would have to do is create a new entry, and they would have to write, me gusta jugar deportes con mi familia. And they have to include some kind of picture or video to show and demonstrate what they like to do with their family. For the fifth and final lesson of this thematic unit, students will be able to share information about their families, such as family members, pets, names, important dates, and activities that they like to do. So they're describing their families in Spanish. So the class would start by having students review the vocabulary learned over the entire unit through a Kahoot game. So this can be played on their tablet, personal device, or a Chromebook. So some of the questions that we have are about family members. Marge es la madre. Me gusta cocinar. I like to cook with my family. I use The Simpsons because a lot of students tend to kind of know who they are in relationship to each other, even if they're not a fan of the show The Simpsons. So we're going to do this Kahoot to review the vocabulary that we have learned so far. And after that, this will kind of be a more student-based, student-led activity. They're going to be using a presentation software such as PowerPoint, Google Slides, Prezi, etc., whatever they're more comfortable with, to make a multimedia presentation about their family. In this presentation, students must include their name, their family members, pets if they have any, their names of their family members and or pets, important dates such as birthdays, holidays, etc., and activities that their family does together, and these students will present their multimedia presentations to their peers the following class and maybe even the class after that. So students could use Google Slides, they could also go to Prezi and they can make a presentation through here. I would encourage too, the Google Slides templates that they have, they kind of get old after a while, so I also like to use Slides Carnival, and I find they have a lot of creative and really customizable templates that you can use both in Google Slides as well as Microsoft PowerPoint. So I would definitely encourage students to go through here and find a template that really matches up with them and what they're trying to present. Overall, I do feel that I did learn a lot about technology and teaching in general in this class. Here are some of the key main points that I did take away from this class. So the first is that technology does not substitute live teaching, but rather enhances it. Some people tend to think, oh, she doesn't want to teach today, she's going to put the kids on computers. While for some teachers that might be a reality, it really allows teachers to be creative with their lesson planning. They can kind of find programs that work for them and that enhance their lessons and incorporate them into their lesson planning so the students are able to take more out of that lesson and learn deeper material. So students can explore technology as well while learning the content of the class. So you're kind of double dipping into two standards. For us, it would be our New Jersey student learning standards as well as the technology standards for students and for teachers. In addition, the activities do become more interactive than if students were just, writing something on a paper with a pencil. If they're writing on a smartboard, if they're typing something, if they're taking a poll, if they're having all of these questions answered in Kahoot, then they're able to really make those activities more interactive, which also makes them more engaging for the students. So, technology does engage students in different ways. In my opinion, technology naturally appeals to multiple intelligences. It has the visual aspect, because things are laid out in a certain way that you cannot always achieve on paper. For musical or students who listen by hearing, maybe you have videos and songs or just hearing the sounds of a natural conversation through technology, that helps them learn. Naturalistic learners tend to see patterns in things which tend to occur very often in technology. Some other things might be kinesthetic, depending on what kind of activity you're doing. Maybe students benefit from being able to draw something on the smartboard and draw it out. That might be a more kinesthetic activity for them since they're able to touch and see the results of what they're touching. Students may also work at their own pace with many forms of technology. In some forms like Kahoot, you have a time limit, so they're not always able to work at their own pace, but maybe for a quiz that's online or for progressing through some videos or a poll, they're able to work at their own pace. I would also say that it does involve critical thinking because it's really a combination of skills. So I myself have a music education background, so we always say that even fourth graders, when you first start your instrument, you're engaging in critical thinking because you have a million things to think about. You're thinking about holding the instrument, you're thinking about having your feet flat on the floor, you're thinking about sitting up straight, and you haven't even put the instrument in your mouth yet. So there's a ton of things that go into critical thinking, and sometimes that's just doing multiple skills at once. Students have to be able to know how to type, how to navigate around the internet, as well as how to use the technology to benefit them and to grab the information from the technology and kind of interpret it in their own way. I do also think that a big stress in this class, not a big stress, but something that was stressed a lot, was the best use of face-to-face time is working with individual students. So instead of spending your class time teaching the content and having probably the majority of students not really get too much out of it, technology can facilitate the use of face-to-face time of working with students by giving them access to the content at home. This way, students are able to learn at their own pace, and in class, the teacher is able to differentiate instruction based on student need during face-to-face time. So the students would definitely benefit from maybe having access to the content at home, engaging in the flipped learning style, so that the teacher is really able to individually help students based on what they need during class, because every single student is going to need something different. So here's some of the apps and programs that I didn't like. I'll start with the negative first so I can end on the positive note. I did talk a little bit on our discussion about how I found the wiki space is a little bit hard to kind of navigate and, get around. I do like the idea of the wiki, but I think that specific wiki space I was just not really a fan of. It wasn't too user-friendly to me. Podcasts, I think, are great for a certain kind of student. However, I feel that for my students at Novice Mid, they definitely need that extra visual element, whether it's a video, whether it's pictures, whether it's a screencast, TPR. I think that a podcast would lead too much to speaking English and not speaking enough in the target language, but I also don't expect students at the Novice Mid level to be able to understand me if I'm just speaking in Spanish and they have no other visuals to help them out. Some apps or programs that I did like were Kahoot. I have used Kahoot before. I think for me it's just the fact that my students don't have personal devices, so I would have to go through the effort of signing out Chromebooks just to be able to use Kahoot, which I think is beneficial, but maybe in the future when I have more time with the students, I will definitely implement that. I did not know that you were able to create surveys on Google Forms. So I think it's a great way to incorporate Google Apps, which are very user-friendly. I'm very familiar with Google. So I definitely liked the survey that I was able to make about the photo story that I used in my first or second lesson. Thought that was really great. The blog, so I like how on WordPress it was very user-friendly. I was able to put a poll up there. I can keep posting about things. I just like the layout of WordPress, and I like the idea that students will also be able to respond and be able to create their own blog entries. As always, YouTube is a wonderful resource. You have both authentic as well as educational resources on there, so YouTube is fantastic. You just have to be careful of the ads, so I always install an ad blocker or put it on mute for the ad. I do like the idea of using social media. So one of my lessons, I actually tweeted out some phrases like, oh, I love to cook with my family. And then students were able to like or retweet it if they agreed with me. The only thing I would be kind of worried about is for my age is students actually having a Twitter account, but I would see that at the high school this probably would not be that much of a problem. I really, really like the idea of screencasts, and I love that since I have a Mac, it's so easy to use. I just go to QuickTime, hit new screen recording, and bam, takes care of it for me. So I really, really enjoy that. And I did not realize the QR codes were that easy to make. I hope that in the future, Apple, Android, Google, etc., when they build their phones, they'll create a built-in QR code reader, because I can see it maybe being a problem, maybe for iPads specifically in the class. If they don't have a QR code reader on there, you're going to have to install a separate app. But I really like the idea of scanning something and it leading you to a link. Kind of makes it a little bit more interactive and fun. So overall, here's some final thoughts that I had. I've learned the hard way, and I know I posted about this, to always have a plan B, N, C, D, E, F, G, for lessons that are heavily based around technology in case of hardware or network issues. So even just yesterday, today is, it's like towards the end of November, so it's been raining a lot. And one of my schools, well, both of my schools yesterday, they lost power. So one school just lost it, it just flickered, but then the internet was out for the rest of the morning. The router had an issue. In my second school, that I thankfully wasn't there for, they were out of power for 3 hours. if you were planning a lesson based around the smartboard, around Chromebooks that, oh, now the cart's not plugged in, so they're not getting charged, plus there's no internet because the router isn't working. So definitely always have a plan B, C, D, E, F, G for those lessons that are based around technology. And kind of similar to that, but less extreme, is to always have a backup of a web-based presentation or program, if possible, maybe a video, on a program that does not require the internet. So I prefer to use Google Slides just because for my situation, I can very easily share them with all of the teachers whose classrooms I go to. But like I said yesterday, the internet stopped working for the rest of the morning. So thankfully I had my slides on my flash drive. The format wasn't 100% correct, but you got the point across. But it's definitely important to always have a backup of those web-based presentations and programs, especially when you are doing things like Park and the network is not working. So overall, I definitely plan to use Kahoot in my classroom once I get a little bit more experience with signing up the Chromebooks. I like the idea of surveys using Google Forms and Kahoot. I do also like the QR codes, screencasts, and social media like Twitter. Definitely think that those are very relevant to use in class. So thank you for watching my screencast. I did learn a lot in this class, and I'm looking forward to implementing all of this into my class.